Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, warm welcome to another refreshing episode of the trading lessons. Now, this episode is dedicated to either a beginner trader, an intermediate trader, or an advanced trader out there. So, if you are in a position whereby your analysis, your knowledge, your information, and your strategy is still not giving you the type of results you expect, then pay attention to what I'm going to be teaching you just in a second. This strategy, it's simple, but it's mostly effective. So the first thing that you got to do every time you make your analysis, you got to ensure that you determine your main trend channels. Then, by the way, first thing first is, what is a trend? Before you can figure out a channel of a trend, you got to understand what a trend is. A trend, in fact, especially a trend line, simply refers to a bounding line on the price action. A bounding line on the price action. That's the simplest way to actually define what a trend really refers to. When we say a bounding line, is that if you figure out that the trend that you are on, let's say it's an uptrend, right? So if you figure out that the trend that you're on is an uptrend, remember, the trend is going to move in terms of averages. I'm going to just show you in a second what I mean about it. Right? Some of you already figure out what I mean, but I'm going to explain. So let's say you go up, right? And let's say it's an uptrend, and then your price keeps on coming back, creating highs and then creating lows, creating highs and creating lows, creating highs and creating lows. Even though sometimes the trend can be broken down a little bit, but as a bounding line, eventually price has to make it back within the trend. So if a trend is a solid and a strong trend, it has to be bounding the price regardless of the highs and the lows that it creates. If it's an uptrend, price should never make it below the lower trend or the trend below, because it's supposed to be bounding the line. Now, the other thing you should take into consideration about the trend is that a complete trend can never be complete without at least having about 3 touches. So if it's an uptrend, it has to have about 3 touches below on any time frame that you're using before it can be a solid trend. So that is just the basis about a trend. First, it's a bounding line. Secondly, it has to have at least about 3 touches, right? Now, how do you even figure out a strong trend on the market? Because not all the trends that you find will be the strongest trend. How do you determine the strongest trend? You determine that by doing what you call a top-down analysis. You start your analysis on the biggest time frame. And for me, what I've noticed so far, the most important time frames which are big, it's actually your weekly time frame, your daily time frame. Yeah, so your weekly and your daily are actually the biggest time frames you should be. Whenever you're drawing your trends, or whenever you're looking for a trend channel, do it on your weekly and then also do it on your daily. That's where it's going to be the strongest one. The channel and the trend that you figure out, the market more often correspond to the weekly and the daily channels. So price action. We said the second step of determining your trend channels is your price action. What I mean about that, so let's say you are making up an analysis, right? You are making up an analysis, and then you figure out that, let's say, your trend is actually in a channel. Now, it can happen that your price was moving in this shape and form. Let's say it's coming from an above, creates a low, and then from there onwards, it starts creating a support right here, right? The pattern can be in any shape or form. Maybe perhaps you find an inverse head and shoulder or a double bottom pattern, something similar to that, right? And then your price starts to push up. Then it comes back, touch for the second time, keep on pushing, comes back for the third time. It can be in any shape and form. Remember, the market is not perfect. So every scenario, it presents multiple different scenarios that are highly dynamic. So you just have to figure out that you determine the patterns, right? So what happens is that if you figure out a strong channel, if it's on a 4 minutes or 5 minutes time frame, or it's on a 4-hour time frame or on a 1-hour time frame, there is a possibility that a channel like this could be evident on a small time frame, like a 1 hour. If you're using a 1 hour, like most of you do, you can find the channel like this. But that doesn't mean that is actually the main trend channel that you should be trading towards. Because the basis about a trend channel, this is the key takeaway, is that you should always trade in the direction of the channel. So if you are figuring out a channel similar to the one that I've drawn here, but you are figuring it out on a 4 hour or on a 30 minutes or on a 1 hour, there is a possibility that on the grand scheme of things, let me show you this. there's a possibility that the market might have been in this shape and form on the daily, right? So let's say on the daily it's looking like that, and then you have figured out your channel on the 1 hour, but on the daily you find that the market was actually in this shape and form. Okay, let me put this one a little bit up there because it's moving with my stuff. And then yeah, we're gonna put the lower line over here, and then we're gonna try to adjust the one above. Which one is this one? Okay, let me just erase this, and then let's get this one over here. You get my point? So if you are using a small time frame, it's not going to be like a strong one, because now this structure that you see here highlighted can simply be this one in between. But on the grand scheme of things, the channel is a downward channel. So if you figure out your trend on the 1 hour to be in a channel like this, which is the same, it can be the case in multiple times. So that won't be the channel I would recommend you to trade in the direction of. Only when you figure out a channel similar like this on a weekly, on a daily, you can trade in the direction of that channel. I once gave a very powerful setup on the pound